Ever wonder what true courage looks like? Sometimes it's not the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes it's the quietest. The California sun beat down on the training grounds at Coronado, where 3 young men were about to learn the hardest lesson of their lives. They didn't know it yet, but they were standing on holy ground, mocking a living legend. Miller was his name. Fresh busket, muscles still burning from the obstacle course, ego inflated to dangerous levels. He'd survived weeks of brutal training, and that made him feel invincible, untouchable, like he owned the place. That's when he spotted her. An elderly woman, silver hair pulled back, kneeling in the dirt beside the barracks. She wore simple overalls and gardening gloves, tending to roses with the kind of gentle care that seemed completely out of place in this testosterone-fueled world of warriors. To Miller, she was an intruder, a soft civilian who'd wandered where she didn't belong. "Hey, you know you're not supposed to be here, right?" His voice dripped with that special kind of arrogance that comes from being 23 and thinking you've figured out the world. His buddies flanked him, feeding off each other's energy like wolves circling prey. They'd just conquered the course. Their bodies ached with a good kind of pain that made them feel alive, dangerous, ready for anything, except they weren't ready for her. She didn't look up right away, just kept working, pulling a stubborn weed from the base of a rosebush with practiced precision. When she finally did turn her head, her pale blue eyes held something that stopped Miller cold for just a second, though he pushed through it. "This ground was consecrated by men who trained here long before you were born," she said softly. "I'm just keeping it beautiful for them." The word son that followed hit Miller like a match to gasoline. It reminded him of every dismissal, every condescension he'd ever felt. From this old woman in East Domain. "Don't call me that," he snapped, stepping closer, his shadow falling across her work. "We bleed here. We sweat here. You plant flowers. What gives you the right?" That's when Jacobs noticed it. As she shifted, her sleeve rode up, revealing the edge of an old tattoo, faded green, barely visible, like it had been there since before any of them were born. "Yo, check it out," Jacobs laughed. "Grandma's got ink. What is that? A good luck charm." She pulled her sleeve down, but the damage was done. They smelled blood in the water. Miller leaned in close, invading her space with all the subtlety of a freight train. "Let's see it." She didn't move, didn't flinch, just sat there with that unnerving stillness that somehow felt more powerful than any of their posturing. "You think you're tough?" Miller's voice dropped to a growl. "Being out here with us. You know what? Every operator has a call sign, a name you earn in the dark when things get real. What's yours, old-timer?" Rosé Bouche, Rambo the Petunia Predator. His buddies howled with laughter, the sound bouncing off concrete walls like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. The woman looked past them, toward the memorial wall in the distance. Names carved in granite. Men who never came home. "You have no idea what you're asking," she whispered. But they did ask. They pushed. They demanded. Miller's frustration grew with every second she refused to break, refused to react the way he expected. In his world of explosive effort and brutal certainty, her quiet dignity was incomprehensible. "I asked you a question," he pressed, voice rising. "What's your call sign?" Then everything changed. A voice cut through the morning air like a blade through butter. "What in the hell do you think you're doing, Miller?" Master Chief Petty Officer Thompson appeared like the wrath of God made flesh. This wasn't just any instructor. This was a legend. A man who'd been operating since before these kids were born. His face looked like it had been carved from stone by someone who understood exactly what hardship meant. The trainees froze. The blood drained from their faces so fast you could practically hear it. Thompson walked toward them with the deliberate stride of a predator. Each step, silent, purposeful, terrifying. "I asked you a question," he repeated, voice dangerously quiet now. "We were just securing the area, Master Chief," Miller stammered, and even he knew how pathetic it sounded. Securing the area. Thompson's eyes flicked to the old woman, then back to Miller with laser focus. from a civilian tending a garden approved by the base commander himself. He stepped closer, invading Miller's space the same way Miller had invaded hers. I heard you, candidate. I heard every disrespectful word. You were demanding her call sign. Thompson's face twisted into something far more frightening than anger. You are not worthy to speak that word. You are tadpoles. You are nothing. You haven't earned the right to wear the uniform you have on. He paused, letting it sink in. You want to know her call sign? You think you're man enough to handle it? The air grew heavy, suffocating. The other trainees backed away, trying to distance themselves from Miller like he was radioactive. Thompson didn't take his eyes off Miller, but when he spoke next, his voice filled with profound reverence that shook everyone present. Ma'am, I apologize for the behavior of these children. Then he turned to the trainees, and his voice became steel. You see this tattoo? He pointed at her forearm. That's not a clover. That's the insignia of McVass, Military Assistance Command, Vietnam Studies and Observations Group. The name hung there like a thunderclap. SOG, the deadliest, most clandestine special operations unit of the Vietnam War. The men who disappeared into jungles and were never spoken of. The ghosts who held the line when everything was falling apart. This woman, Thompson continued, voice dropping to Nia whisper, is Dr. Evelyn Reed. During the war, she wasn't in some clean hospital. She was a volunteer surgeon with forward operating bases deep in enemy territory. When spike teams got torn apart across the fence, it was her hands that put them back together. He let that sink in. She went on bright light missions, suicidal rescue operations, to retrieve wounded operators from hot landing zones. She did it unarmed, with nothing but a medical kit and courage that would make every single one of you piss your pants. The trainees stared at Dr. Reed, truly seeing her for the first time. The wrinkles weren't just age, they were history, carved in flesh. The quiet demeanor wasn't weakness. It was the ultimate confidence of someone who'd faced the absolute worst and survived. The men she saved gave her a name, Thompson continued, his voice thick with emotion. When the team was hit, when they were surrounded and bleeding out with the enemy closing in, the call that went out over the radio wasn't for a medic. It was, "Get us the Green Lady." The words landed like physical blows. Why Green Lady? Thompson's voice cracked. Because she was a phantom. She'd slip into landing zones that pilots refused to touch. A green-clad figure moving through smoke and chaos like death itself had taken Mercy's form. He told them about Spike Team Dakota, ambushed deep in Laos, surrounded by a battalion, every man critically wounded. No way out. About to be overrun. Evelyn heard the radio traffic, grabbed her kit, bullied a pilot into flying her to the coordinates, rappelled 70 feet through triple canopy jungle. Alone. Landed in the middle of a firefight. For 6 hours. Thompson sighed, his voice distant now. She kept those men alive. She performed a thoracotomy with a knife to relieve a tension pneumothorax. She used her own shirt to pack a femoral artery bleed, all while the team returned fire around her, protecting her with everything they had. When extraction finally came at dusk, she'd stabilized all of them. Every single member of Spike Team Dakota came home alive because of her. Thompson turned his full attention back to Miller. You stand here on ground paid for by men like that. And you mocked their savior. You demanded her call sign. Now you have it. Choke on it. Miller's legs went weak. He looked at Dr. Reed and saw not an old woman, but a giant. He saw the jungle, the blood, the impossible courage. He wanted the earth to swallow him whole. That's when the base commander arrived, a Navy captain who executed a perfect, sharp salute to Dr. Reed. She could have ended their careers with a word. Everyone knew it. Instead, she made a request. I want them assigned to me, 1 hour every day for the rest of their time in Bud S. She gestured to a garden. Every plant here is dedicated to a man I knew who didn't come home. This rose is for Gary, who loved his wife's garden. The lavender is for Mike, who said it reminded him of his mother's porch in Texas. Her gaze swept over the trainees. They'll work this soil. Pull weeds, water, flowers. And while they work, I'll tell them stories of the men this garden honors. I'll teach them what it truly costs to wear the trident. That'll be their punishment and their education. The captain stared at her with immense respect. Your request is granted, ma'am. Miller remained frozen after the others fled. He finally lifted his head, tears swimming in his eyes. Maham, I'm so sorry. Dr. Reed looked at him with those pale blue eyes. Hold in not anger, but profound sadness and something else. Ho-Chi bent down, picked up a small hand trowel, and held it out to him. Apology accepted, son. Now, let's get to work. I'll start by telling you about a young corpsman named Danny who saved my life in the Ashau Valley. Miller took the trowel, its wooden handle feeling both impossibly heavy and profoundly sacred in his trembling hand. He knelt in the dirt at the feet of a legend, a boy about to learn how to become a man. Because sometimes the most important lessons aren't taught in classrooms or on obstacle courses. They're taught by quiet guardians who tend sacred ground, keeping it beautiful for those who paid the ultimate price. And sometimes the greatest warriors aren't the ones who shout the loudest. They're the ones who save lives in silence, then disappear into legend, only to reappear when the next generation needs to learn what real courage looks like.